Alright, welcome back to part 2 of this week's Monday movie. So in this section of the tutorial we'll be going over how you can use literal geometry using Loft in order to make a twisted metal cable or rope. And this technique uses actual geometry in contrast to the last video where we used a procedural texture map. So this one's a little bit more intensive on your graphics processor, a little bit more intensive on your computer, but if you absolutely positively have to get that awesome look, this is how you would do it. So let's start off with a spline that we're going to do the effect over. I'm going to use smooth here, just like that. And so this line is going to be the path that the cable follows. And then we're going to decide using a circle that is going to be the shape that the loft is going to use. And our interpolation is going to determine the number of wires that are going to be in this cable. So if I select 0 steps, I'm going to get 4 points in the circle, and that's going to mean 4 cables are going to be part of this 4 wires are going to be part of this cable. So I'm going to set it to 1, and that's going to give me 8 different wires as part of this cable. And so I'm going to select my path. I'm going to select compound objects, and I'm going to pick loft, a loft object. We're going to get shape. We want our circle that we made, and that's going to give us the basis of our wire. But we've got to make some changes in order for this technique to work. So my modify panel, I'm going to start from the top and I'm going to go down. So we need apply mapping. We're going to need UVW mapping in case you want to do anything to it in the future. Although now that I think about it, it may not actually make it to the final object, but it's good form. Next, let's go to our shape steps. We don't want extra steps because that's just going to make more wires and more burden on the computer. So I'm going to pick 1. That's going to give us there you go, now you can see it. So that's going to give us the 8 wires that we want. Now path steps, this is important because it determines how many vertices are going to be in the splines that make the final cable. So if I select 0, then the final cable that is a twisted that's made of twisted wires that's going to follow this path, the final cable is going to have 1, 2, just those 2 points. So let's keep moving down here. And the last thing that we want is to twist it. So I'm going to engage twist and click right here. And that's going to bring up our curve editor. Kind of a funny way to implement twisting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the end of the loft. And throughout the duration of this loft object, I want to increase the twist. I want it to twist 4 times. 4 times. It's 400. I'm going to close this window. Gosh, I can't help but notice that this is looking a little bit mangled, so I'm going to increase my path steps a little bit. That should do it. Let's see how that, maybe 1 more, just for good measure. Okay, that looks like appropriate. So we can now take this object and convert it to an editable poly. And of course the normals are all wonky, but we don't want the normals, we want the splines. So I'm going to select one of the edges here, and I'm going to click ring, and then I'm going to click loop. So you notice that now I have a selection of twisted edges in this object. And all I have to do is click create shape from selection, leave it smooth. I'm going to call this cable, And now I can select the new spline object that was created and click Enable in Render or Enable in Viewport. And now I have a twisted set of splines. I'm going to increase their thickness so that they sort of resemble a cable. Just about there. That looks about right. I'm going to isolate it for this render, and let's see how it looks. So there you go, there you go. We now have a cable that is made of twisted spline objects. And then from here you can apply the previous technique. You can make each one of these splines in turn a twisted set of more smaller wires. So there you have it. This is the technique for creating real geometry cable objects. Tune in next week for another Monday movie. I'm Mr. Blue Summers. Have a good week.